And this is what everybody tends to love, is the doshas. So from the 5 elements, which is space, air, fire, and earth, come these sort of 3 energies. And these 3 energies are just called doshas. So the doshas are vata, which is the energy of movement, pitta, which is the energy of transformation, and kapha, which is the energy of lubrication and structure. So our bodies are comprised of all 3 doshas, and each dosha is made of these different elements. So together, the doshas combine to form our physical body. Now, each dosha in our body has specific functions, specific qualities and effects, and the time of day, the seasons, our life cycles, these are all governed by our doshas. So doshas create balance in the body, and when out of balance, the doshas create the defect or the disease. So we have all 3 doshas in each of us, but we have them in unique combinations. And this unique combination is what creates you, and is the reason why Ayurveda is highly individualized. So the doshas are the crowd pleasers part of Ayurveda, when everybody sort of says, yay, who am I, what am I? So you already know your dosha or your metabolic type. So what we're going to do is we're going to meet the doshas one by one. And it's important to become familiar with their sort of energies, their physicality, their qualities and actions. And there will be 1 or 2 doshas that best describe you quickly, followed by sort of a spark in you that says, hey, that's me. You'll probably also recognize your family members and friends, and doshas are definitely the most fun to learn. So let's go ahead and meet these 3 doshas. So the first one is vata, and vata is the energy of movement. So vata dosha is responsible for our every move, including our subtle movements like the heart beating, the blood circulating, and the eyes blinking, to very gross movements like dancing, running, playing air guitar. So vata governs our colon, ears, heartbeats, and breath. In fact, vata is often referred to as the king of doshas because pitta and kapha cannot move without it. So vata plays a large role because it's involved in almost every function in the body. So the windy types that they are, vatas talk fast, they walk fast, they create fast, they worry fast. Vata people are thin with a small frame and normally a lack of insulation, so they don't carry much fat on them at all. They have a slender physique, an oval-shaped face. Their hair is often very thin, dry, and frizzy. And they're delicate in physical build, and their emotions are very delicate too. So their moods and their minds change easily. So vatas are a bit sort of bird-like, flitting from one thing to the next, sometimes out of pure spontaneity, and other times they do it on purpose. They just love drumming to a different beat. And since vata people are made of air and space, they don't have a lot sort of holding them together. So they go quickly out of balance, but they also quickly can come back into balance too. So balanced vatas are creative, they're spiritual, they're eager, they're quick thinkers, quick adapters, they're exuberant, and their positive energy attracts others. Vatas are effervescent, they're contagiously energetic and really invigorating. These are the people that you say just sort of light up the room. And vatas are happiest when they are warm and they have a calm, peaceful mind, and that allows sort of their creativity to soar. So vatas are vibrant. They're often very creative. They can jumpstart things, but they often need help from others to plan and produce because they quickly move on to the next thing. So they're not very good at finishing things through. They're not very detail-oriented, and despite best intentions, these are the people that are chronically late. They always change their mind. They always are late because they're fiddling around just finding the latest thing to wear, or they've lost their earrings, or they decided that these shoes don't go with these jeans. So they do best really with projects that have lots and lots of facets so that they can stay creative. They love lots of space to breathe. They love space to move. And if a Vata person is in an environment that's dark, stagnant, and cluttered, they will get depressed really, really quickly. They don't tolerate criticism well. They're very thin-skinned. They have what we would call a delicate confidence, and their feelings get hurt really easily. They're deeply affected by sad things, so they have to be really careful what they watch on TV. They're dramatic, swinging like a pendulum. And when they're on, they're really so on. And when they're off, they're really off too. But the good news is they forget really quickly what they were off about, and they can quickly resume, being their normal self. So how do we spot a Vata? So Vatas normally have a small frame, slender bones. They're really visible around their joints. They tend to have an oval face, small eyes and lashes, long nose and long fingers. And their skin is often dry and cool. They often complain of sort of brittle nails. Their skin color tends to be light brown. It can tan really easily. They often have dry, curly or frizzy hair. And they talk a lot. They use their hands a lot for emphasis. They're chronic multitaskers. They talk fast, walk fast, think fast, and they get easily fatigued. They are always late, which is a hassle if you're married to one or you have one as a best friend. But, they're really spontaneous. They're eager. They trust their gut. They go with their gut often. And they often are really artistic. They're designers, teachers, actors, ballet dancers. I mean, they're just incredibly creative. But the Vata mind tends to live in the future. They love to sort of what-if stories and have 1,000 different possible scenarios. So Vatas do need to remember to stay present because most of what they put their energies and worries into hasn't even happened yet. So if Vatas don't stick to a reliable schedule and eat grounding foods, then they can just fly away like a balloon in the atmosphere. And they really learn quickly, but they can forget just as fast too. So when a Vata goes out of balance, then they are prone to imbalances like anxiety, worry, panic, mood swings, chronic fatigue, memory loss, constipation is a big one, dry skin, depression, osteoporosis, or arthritis. And because they are the energy of movement, their minds and their bodies are constantly going. They're constantly fidgeting or wriggling their legs when they sit. They're constantly in motion. And this constant motion is a result of Vata increase and can also create more Vata. That very movement in itself creates more Vata themselves. And when Vatas get cold, their concentration just flies out the window. They become moody, they can become confused, forgetful, inattentive, and this then makes them really, really inefficient. So overall, when Vatas have too much motion, it turns them into like a tornado of confusion. They often doubt themselves, they feel like they've lost control, and Vatas are the people who will say, hey, I just need my space. And their minds tend to race to the future, and that they create all these kinds of imaginary outcomes. So what do Vatas need? Well, nutritionally, Vatas need a lot of structure, grounding, and warmth. And so they need to eat a lot of warm, comforting foods with healthy oils, including lots of ghee. So easy and balancing dishes for Vata are things like sort of non-vegetarian soups. Vatas actually need to have some meat. Stews, one-pot meals. But Vata appetite is pretty erratic, meaning sometimes they'll eat like a bird. Other times they'll have a voracious appetite. What we see with Vatas is they lack the fire and water elements, and that kind of makes them prone to constipation because of their cold and dry qualities. So oils and sauces lubricate the body to counterbalance the rough and dry qualities, while warm foods help balance the cold qualities. So this really helps Vatas maintain regular digestion. They also need a reliable schedule. that provide structure and reliability. Otherwise, they become way too worried. And they'll be too worried to be happy. They'll be too worried to be productive. And Vatas tend to think Pittas are hilarious, but admire their organization. And Vatas love Kapha hugs and are grounded actually by Kapha's steady, peaceful nature. So you often find Vatas hook up with Kaphas as sort of life mates and tend to marry Kaphas because they're most suitable for them, because they tend to ground Vatas. So Vatas are imbalanced by overstimulation, cold, dry environments, cold, dry foods, multitasking, moving too much, moving too fast, whereas they need to counterbalance that lots of structure, lots of grounding. They need warm, oily foods, heavy foods they do really well with. And a great mantra for Vatas, and they always need to remember this, is stay present, because they are multitasking and they're off all over the place, and slow down as well. So moving on from Vatas then to Pittas. So Pitta is all about the energy of transformation. And the Pitta dosha is responsible for digestion, responsible for transformation, responsible for our food, our thoughts, emotions, and intelligence. And Pitta governs our eyes, our skin, liver, blood, anything red has Pitta in it. Also our small intestines and digestive fire. Pitta is the only dosha with the fire element. So the state of Pitta dosha affects how well our digestive fire works. So Pitta's responsibility is to digest and assimilate nutrients. It sort of separates the useful food from the waste. So Pitta type of people tend to have a medium and muscular build. They normally have pretty sensitive skin, and they usually run pretty hot. They normally have pretty sharp facial features in terms of that, they're pointed. They can have a pointed nose, pointed chin, high cheekbones. They normally have penetrating blue or green eyes, often have receding hairline, or they gray really sort of prematurely. Pittas are well organized, they move with intent, and they pre-plan everything. Their analytical nature will drive them to ask lots and lots of questions before making a sound decision. They will research everything. They're also really, really concerned about time, often doing a drive-by before appointments, so they know exactly how long it takes to get somewhere. So Pittas are really sharp. They have a sharp mind. They also have a pretty sharp tongue too, and their words can hurt people at different times. So since Pittas are really high performers and often overloaded, they don't beat around the bush as they try to find the quickest and the best solution. So they're fantastic improvisers, they're great negotiators, they're brilliant problem solvers. They live in the present. It takes Pittas actually a moderate amount of time to go out of balance and a moderate amount of time to come back into balance too. But balanced Pittas, they're joyful, persuasive, they're quick-witted, they have a great sense of humor, they easily attract others to follow their direction, they're natural leaders. They tend to have fiery personalities, and they are really the happiest when things go their own way. So they debate, and they will argue, and they'll debate and argue with you until you agree with their point of view. And if they can sort of embody lightheartedness and they can just chill out more and accept that not everything will go their way, then their natural ability to sort of inspire and teach everyone around them will shine. They'll do really well. So they tend to thrive on competition. They have a natural ability to lead. Pittas make great lawyers, athletes, politicians, business owners. They've got the drive for that. They're mega organized, and they can get really irritated if things are messy or out of place. And because Pitta governs the eyes, they really see everything down to the tiniest detail. So if they see a spelling error, for example, they will just have to correct it. If they see splotches in the kitchen sink, they'll have to clean it. If there's a mess or disarray in their line of sight, their mind won't be able to focus and until they can get to it. Or if they can't get to it, then they'll just get irritated. These are the people that will use phrases like, see, from my perspective, and then go ahead and try and persuade you into doing things. So how do we spot a pitta? So pittas are normally athletic, muscular. They normally have medium build. They normally have pretty sharp facial features, sharp nose, chin, and eyes. Their skin is often pink, fair, freckled. Maybe they've got some moles, lots of freckles. And they always either have those sort of sharp eyes, those penetrating eyes, sort of blue-green or a combination of blue-green eyes. They gray easily, often have pretty smooth, silky, straight hair, often sort of auburn or reddish undertones to their skin and to their hair. They use words that are often a little jarring to others. They're straight and to the point. They don't believe in beating around the bush, so they can have sort of pretty sharp words for others too. But they are chronically witty. They have a great sense of humor. They often need glasses or contacts, always punctual. Pittas are always punctual. They always ask lots of questions. And we often see them in things like sales, competitive sports, politics, where they can use their wit, law because of the fine attention to detail, in leadership roles, and they're often entrepreneurs too. So a pitta out of balance. So pittas tend to be prone to sort of heating imbalances, so sunburn, heartburn, hypertension, increased stress, irritability, even down to road rage. So it's the pittas that are like, if somebody cuts me off, I'm going to give them a finger, or I'm going to just really sort of tailgate this person to show my anger. They have a pretty high threshold, but eventually their stress levels will cause burnout. So pittas are the type that will just eventually burn out. They do get angry, but they are not easily angered. They tend more towards frustration and irritability as their sort of go-to negative emotions. And mostly they'll feel frustrated and irritable if they feel that others are not doing their part or not following the rules. So because pitta is related to digestive fire, then pitta digestion can often run too hot too, and that results in sort of acidic stomach, heartburn, and diarrhea. So what do pitta needs? Well, they tend to need grounding, cool, fresh foods, lots of healthy grains, fruits, vegetables, and proteins. And balanced pittas will crave sweet fruits, salads, beans, breads, rice, milk, cucumber water. But pittas should be careful of sort of excess salt, cheese, hot spices, sour fruits, yogurt, and alcohol, because it's these foods that can easily cause an imbalance. Now, because of their fire element, normally pittas have pretty strong digestion. They're always hungry. They can eat almost anything. But if a pitta is hungry and they don't get fed, then watch out, because they can become really fierce if they don't eat. That term hangry, sort of a cross between hungry and angry, defines really what a pitta is. So as a default, pittas normally always create a schedule, but they do need to understand that not all things go according to plan. So even rules get broken sometimes, and relaxation can be hard for a pitta. But it's really important for pittas to relax, to keep from going into overdrive. Now, pittas are the least emotional of the three doshas because their nature is rooted in transformation and action. So pittas are brilliant if you need action or if you need problem solving, but they're not going to be a caretaker. So if you need sympathy or nurturing, you need to talk to a kapha instead. But pittas do appreciate Vatta's creative problem solving, and they love kapha's consistent reliability too. So pittas get imbalanced by too much heat, by competition, high stress, by too much sun, and really spicy and really sour foods. It just fires them up. So what they need is grounding, cool air, cool breezes around them. They need serenity, especially the serenity of nature. They need to relax and they need spare time. Pittas are often so busy doing that they don't take the time to just have spare time. So a good mantra for Pittas is have compassion for others, which they often don't, and let it go. Just let it go. It's not that important. And then our next metabolic type, Kapha. This is the energy of structure. So the Kapha dosha creates our physical building blocks and is responsible for keeping our tissues strong and our tissues really supple. So Kapha is our lubrication. It's our mucus, our reproductive fluids. It's responsible for building our tissues. It's sort of like the glue that binds the body together. So Kapha nurtures and supports Vata and Pitta, both sort of mentally, emotionally, and physically. Kaphas normally have a solid or sort of more voluptuous build, and though they have a strong presence, they're often soft-spoken and they're often pretty shy too. So Kapha-type people are normally strong, they're jolly, they're sweet, and they're highly structured in both their sort of mind and body. They normally have thick porcelain-type skin. They don't wrinkle easily, so they age really well. They often have a lot of thick hair. Their eyes are round, thick eyelashes, and they normally have a beautiful smile, a strong, bright smile. So Kaphas are the sturdiest of the three doshas. They're capable of handling a lot of work with endless patience, and they do have lots and lots of patience. They're heavy though, they can be slow in nature. It does take them a long time to get out of balance. It also takes them a long time to get back into balance too. So what kind of personality do Kaphas have? Well, everybody loves a Kapha. Balanced Kaphas are peacemakers, they're empathic, they're caretakers, they're great hosts, they give the best hugs, and they are always happy, they're extremely tolerant, incredibly patient, and they're the first ones to offer a helping hand. Kaphas just love to cheerlead. Their faces and their hearts light up when others succeed. Their mind is steady. They normally have a very positive attitude and their bodies are really strong. So just a Kapha's presence normally allows others to rest easy because Kaphas have a wonderful ability of just not judging. They always listen. They rarely get angry. And Kaphas are happiest when they're in a warm, dry climate and when they have lots of light activities going on. They love to garden, cook, knit. They're often great singers, powerful singers. And it's all that healthy lubrication around the vocal cords that make them natural singers. Now, Kaphas don't like change, and they feel most comfortable in routine. So they'll often go to the same restaurants, they'll order the same meals over and over, they might not move very far from their hometown. Kaphas also take a very long time to make a decision. They're a little on the lazy side. They would rather someone else make all the decisions, so all they have to do is follow. So you might hear a Kapha say, yeah, whatever you think, or I'll follow your lead. So, but give a Kapha a list of projects to do and consider it done. Kaphas have strong endurance, but they can overextend themselves, leaving nothing left to nourish themselves because they're so busy pleasing other people. They're the ultimate people pleasers. They have a hard time saying no because they don't like to upset others. They don't like to create conflict. They don't want to stir the pot, so it's just much easier to say yes. They'll often take on way too much just to keep the peace. And if Kaphas don't sort of rest, they can often take on a more victim-type syndrome, a poor me syndrome. And that negative weight can be felt by everyone. So it's not easy to exhaust or upset a Kapha, but once you've upset them, they can get downright mean and they can hold a grudge forever. So the best thing Kaphas can do is ask for what they need. Others will always assume they are okay because of their sort of happy-go-lucky natures. So Kaphas do need to ask. So how do we spot a Kapha? Large frame, big bones, strong joints. They normally have a round face, big eyes, lush lashes. They normally have wider lips, strong nails, big knuckles often, and their skin is normally cool and moist, so it can be a little clammy. Their skin color is even. They normally have beautiful, clear complexions. Thick, wavy, oily hair, but they're often really shy. They're quiet. They often listen far more than they talk. They have a strong endurance, often very patient, very slow moving, and they can become our quintessential couch potato. They can be really, really lazy. So they would rather follow than lead. They often put everybody else first. And we often find Kaphas in the sort of nurturing professions. They often work as sort of nurses, in sort of working with human resources. And it's interesting to note that without Kapha, Vata and Pitta would just be a sort of a fiery, windy inferno. So what Kapha does is it cools heat and it calms the wind. So it balances Vata and Pitta. So Kaphas tend to be the healthiest of the three doshas because they have such a strong foundation. They don't ride an emotional roller coaster like a Vata, nor do they tend to carry stress like a Pitta. So if you have someone in your family that you call the glue or the rock, chances are that they are probably a Kapha. So a Kapha out of balance, and they are prone to imbalances like weight gain, lethargy. They can get really sort of cloudy, foggy. Cystic acne is a big one with Kaphas, allergies, increased mucus, water retention, and depression. So Kaphas can also get really lonely if they don't have enough people time. So being with others is what invigorates Kaphas. They feel lighter, they feel inspired when in the company of vivacious Vatas or strategic thinking Pittas. And because of their heavy and static nature, it's really easy for Kaphas to collect things all the way through to when they get really imbalanced, then they'll go into hoarding things. So that's that Kapha quality when it goes out of balance. So what do Kaphas need? Well, Kapha appetite and metabolism is really slow. So they actually need to skip meals every now and then to remain content and to remain happy. So fasting is actually necessary for Kaphas because what it does is it gives their really low digestive fire a chance to catch up, to process any old foodstuffs hanging around. Kapha is watery, so they need to soak up excess water with airy and dry foods, things like veggies, fruits, salads, beans. So a light, warm, spicy vegetarian diet is actually best for Kaphas because what it does is it heats them up and it also keeps them light. Now, Kaphas love to shop. They tend to buy things in multiples. They're the ones to buy 3 pairs of the same jeans in different colors or 7 of the same spatula because they were on bulk discount. So one of the best things Kaphas can do for themselves is to lighten the load. They tend to be attached to past emotional things and material things. So Kaphas actually need to lighten up a bit. Now, Kaphas are the most emotional of the doshas and cry the most easily. It's all that water quality that they have. So we go to a Kapha for emotional support, but not for a strategic plan of action. So Kaphas brighten up and they often get a spring in their step when they're surrounded by the lively energy of a Vata. They need somebody to spice them up a bit. Kaphas normally have a strong admiration for Pitta, a strong ability to lead the way. They admire that sort of leadership ability. So kaphas get imbalanced by heavy emotions. They just don't deal too well with all that heaviness, excess food, excess material things, and lack of physical movement. And what they need is they need sort of lightness, warmth, lots of movement, dryness, lots of spicy things really help with kaphas. So in wintertime, it's the kaphas that should be drinking chai. And a good mantra for kaphas is let go. Just let go of whatever doesn't serve you anymore and get up and dance. Get up and move. They definitely need to move. So this is why it's easy then to see that one size does not fit all. So let's look a little bit sort of doshas at their best. So we will go to a vata if we need uplifting energy, if we need a breath of fresh air, if we need creative ideas, invigoration, lots of inspiration, lightheartedness, if we need a fresh approach to situations or some spontaneity or exploring future possibilities. That's what we'll go to a vata for. And we'll go to a pitta if we need advice without emotion, if we're looking for problem solving, if we're looking for action planning, if we're looking for witty humor, organization, if we want sort of strategy and leadership, if we need somebody to mentor us, if we need to stay present and stay focused, that's what we'll go to a pitta for. And lastly, we will go to a kapha if you need emotional comfort. If you need someone to listen, a good meal, a great hug, if you need stamina, if you need empathy, accessorizing, they're really good at that, or you just want to reminisce, go down memory lane, then that's what kaphas are really good for. So I often get a lot of questions from clients about their own sort of unique balance. And sometimes vatas and pittas will say, hey, I wish I was a kapha. And you know, kaphas have their vices too, but sometimes we do wish we could become something we are not. Maybe we wish we were more organized like a pitta, or maybe we wish we had more creativity like a vata. And of course we all wish for more peace of mind and compassion like a kapha. So I do have some news for you. You are always going to be you. You cannot become a different dosha if it's not in your nature. So thrive by focusing on your strengths and positive qualities rather than your weaknesses. And while you are discovering who you are, metabolically speaking, embrace the way that you are unique. And people have also asked me if our innate nature, who we naturally are, which we call our prakriti, changes over a lifetime. And the answer is no. Your prakriti, who you are, it never changes. It is always going to be your unique makeup forever. However, over time, life happens, doesn't it? We have good habits, we have bad habits, we get stressed, we have emotional trauma, we adjust our life according to the season and so on. And the result of all those life happenings is what we call vikriti. Or in other words, when your doshas have gone off course, in that case, we will need to work on rebalancing vikriti, sort of work on that imbalanced dosha to get back to your prakriti, which is your natural balance. So you see how that works? See how that makes sense? So let's walk through an example. Let's imagine we have a friend called Matti. And Matti has a vata pitta prakriti. That means that's his innate dosha. That's his metabolic type. He is vata pitta. And over time, Matti has accumulated a vata vikriti. So that vata has gone out of balance. Matti has an equal balance of vata and pitta doshas and only a little kapha dosha. So therefore, his prakriti is vata pitta. Now, Matti has a new job that's really, really stressful. He started to drink more coffee, doesn't have enough time to cook warm meals, so he's eating cold sandwiches and salads on the run. To help relieve job stress, he began over-exercising. Matty's mind has started to race, especially when he wakes up in the middle of the night and he can't get back to sleep. Matty also starts noticing typical Vata imbalances like constipation, dry skin, and he sometimes has problems concentrating. And on the surface, Matty will seem more like a Vata person than his natural Vata Pitta self. Now, because of these habits, what Matty has done is he's increased the space and air elements as well as movement, which are all related to that Vata dosha. So Matty now has a Vata imbalance and therefore a Vata Vikriti. Matty's Prakriti is still Vata Pitta. It never changed, remember? It's his natural combination. But his Vata is higher than what it should be for him as an individual. Therefore, he has a Vata Vikriti. Now, Matty suddenly realizes he's not feeling, eating, or sleeping well. And he's a good Ayurveda student, so he starts making some adjustments. He incorporates a morning meditation. He swaps out his high-intensity exercise for yoga sessions. He also begins cooking meals at home again and begins taking lunch to work, where he can sort of warm it up. He takes short breaks during the day to restore energy and relieve his stress. So now he has a better focus on his job because he can focus. So he gets to feel more confident and happy. His stress levels decrease. He starts sleeping better. He has a renewed sense of energy, alertness, focus, and peace in his mind. And that sort of windy, high movement qualities have calmed down, and his Vata level goes back down. And this is where the understanding of each dosha is really important. We always work on balancing the Vikriti first, the imbalance. And because Matty's Vata was out of balance, he incorporated Vata balancing practices to bring him back to his Prakriti of Vata Pitta, back to his normal state. So we always balance the Vikriti first. And you know yourself better than anyone on the planet. So if you feel in your gut that something in your life needs to change or improve, you are probably right. So awareness is the first step in making a really sort of impactful change in who you are. So there are 7 metabolic combinations. And these are those 7. And it doesn't matter which dosha comes first. Somebody will say to me, oh, I'm Vata Pitta, which is not the same as Pitta Vata. Yes, it is. Vata Pitta and Pitta Vata, they are all considered the same. And there is Vata Pitta Kapha, so you can be tridoshic. However, it almost never ever happens. Whenever somebody sort of says, oh, I'm tridoshic, I have yet to meet anybody who's tridoshic, and I have yet to meet any of my teachers who have met anybody who's tridoshic. So those are the 7 metabolic combinations, and you know by now which is right for you, which is your type. So like does increase like. So we are now aware of our Prakriti and our Vikriti, and once we've got awareness, we need to know what to do with it. So it's time to sort of look at the qualities, or gunas as we call them, so that you can begin applying your awareness. So we tend to use the Ayurvedic rule that like increases like, which means the opposite qualities balance us. So a simple example, if we're cold, we put on a sweater. If we're too hot, we remove layers. See? We already know when we need to balance. We just need to give ourselves permission to listen to our instinct. And these are the 10 pairs of qualities in Ayurveda. So foods, for example, can be heavy, light, sticky. Seasons are cold, hot, wet. People can be heavy, light, cold, or warm. Whenever my husband grabs my hand, he says, you are always so lovely and cool. And I say, and you are always so toasty and warm. In that way, we're a perfect balance. So Vata energy actually has a cold quality. So a Vata person will have a tendency to be cold. So if we give a Vata person cold drinks and raw salads in winter, it would make them extremely cold and imbalanced. They'll get cold hands and feet, they'll become absent-minded, maybe constipated, maybe moody. But what if we took that sort of chilly Vata in the middle of winter and we plopped them into a nice hot tub? They would get blissfully warm and the cold quality would instantly decrease. Vatas would actually feel that they were in heaven. Pitta energy has a hot quality. So if we gave a Pitta person extra hot salsa with tortilla chips and a margarita while sitting in the hot sun, it would create an inferno inside their bodies. They might get heartburn, they would get red blotchy skin, they'd probably get irritable or super sweaty and feel like they were going to pass out. So instead, if we give sort of Pitta a bowl of fresh fruit, a sun hat and a glass of mint water, they would actually feel really refreshed and calm. Kapha energy has heavy and wet qualities. So let's say a Kapha person is regularly eating mac and cheese, bread bowls with creamy clam chowder and fettuccine and cream sauce. The wet and heavy qualities in Kapha would increase because of these foods. So this Kapha would gain weight, they'd feel lethargic, they may have increased mucus, they would feel an overall sense of heaviness. So to balance them, we could give them a variety of steamed vegetables with sort of like a light garlic ginger sauce, a side of rice noodles, and a spicy chai. And they would feel really light and energized. So the most powerful way to use this theory of opposites is to use it as a practice each day. The more often we collect like qualities around us, the more those qualities will build in excess, which sort of tips our dosha balance. So let's look at the qualities of those doshas. So vatas tend to be cold, they're dry, they're light, they're mobile, subtle, and rough. So what they need then to counterbalance those qualities is warmth, wet and oily things. They need heavy things, things that are stable, such as routines, things that are dense and very smooth. And that's what's going to balance those imbalanced qualities of vatas. And pitta qualities are hot, sharp, oily, mobile, and smooth. So what they need is things that are cool, things that are dull, dry, stable, and rough. And the kapha qualities, kaphas tend to be cold, wet, heavy, static, dense, and dull. So to counterbalance those qualities, we add warmth, things that are dry, things that are light, mobile, get them moving, and rough and sharp. So it kind of sort of makes sense when you look at it. So sort of ask yourself, what qualities do you notice in yourself and how do they show up in you? So, you know, I'm Vata Pitta, so I often have cold hands and feet. That's what it shows up in me. But the Pitta qualities in me can heat me up and I can get really irritated with the rest of the world if they're not moving as quick as me and don't seem quite as sharp as me on any given day. So that's how it plays out in me. So I want you to sort of think about how this plays out with you too. So that's enough about the dosha. That's quite a lot of information to sort of think about and wrap your head about. Any questions at all about doshas and how they interact, how they work out with you? What do you think? Any questions? Then I am going to stop the recording if there are no questions. So I'll just give it another minute or so and see if anybody has any questions about your doshas. I know you've been working with your doshas for a while. So you probably feel pretty comfortable, but may not be so familiar with some of the other doshas that don't show up quite as strongly in you. So it's interesting how they play out in all of us throughout the different seasons. Then let me stop the recording here and just let you know that we will be again next month having another call on sort of what does it mean to be balanced. And when we talk about balance, which is a word we often use in today's world, you know, I need to be more in balance, or I need to be balanced. You know, what are we talking about when we talk about balance? Life balance, digestive balance, financial balance? You know, what do we actually talk about? Balancing the checkbook. So there are many ways of looking at balance. So thanks for being on the call tonight. I appreciate it. I will record this. It is recorded. I will send it out to you as well. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.